It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Hello, model citizens. Welcome to Junction. Tonight on Trains and Tech, we're going to go through part two of my Minneapolis operations adventure. In case you missed it, last week, we went through 5 out of the 7 layouts that I attended during Minn-Rail 2025. Minn-Rail is an invite only ops weekend that happens in Minneapolis. They do it every other year opposite of River Rail, and I was very fortunate to be able to get invited to this year's, which happened, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. Feels like it was a lifetime ago. After we finish the last 2 layouts that I went and attended, I will show you some of the causes that come out of going to these operations weekends, because sometimes they're inspiration and sometimes they cause you to rip out things on your layout. So we'll get into that in a second. But if everyone remembers, for everyone that was here, this was the last photo that we saw. This was Dan Dose's layout, and we ended with taking out the trash. The next layout we're going to get to is one of the 2 layouts that I would have gone anyway, but I've never operated on another N-scale layout besides my layout until this weekend. We talked about last week, I got to operate on Damien's layout, and his layout had an interesting construction method. A lot of it was either exactly T-track or very T-track-esque, and just had a lot of really neat details on it. So this week we're going to keep going with another N-scale layout, which was basically the second reason or first reason. Ken Borowski's N-scale layout, which is the clinch field, and that didn't work at all. I thought that might have worked. There we go. The Clinchfield Railroad Blue River Division. This is a layout that takes up 3 rooms in his basement. Used to just take up 1 room, but as things go, he expanded into 1 room, then another room, and before you know it, took up a lot more space. But this is one of the well-known N-scale layouts, and I was very excited to get to go operate on this layout. One thing that I've always been concerned about as an N-scale layout owner and somebody that is building their layout for operations is that N-scale doesn't lend itself to operations. There's kind of opinions that it might be too small or, you know, too difficult to keep on the track. There's all these, I guess, excuses for N-scale. And I think this layout is a really good example of that the scale doesn't really matter. You kind of get completely lost in the scenery and in the layout. And, you know, there you have it. So let's keep going. This is one of his signature scenes. We'll get an uninterrupted or an unblocked picture of it in a second. So this is the Clinchfield Railroad, which moves red dirt, but instead of modeling the part of the railroad that is up at the top of the mountains where they're, you know, picking up loaded and bringing up the empties, he's modeling the lower part of it. So that means in addition to moving a bunch of red dirt, which is iron ore, he can also add a bunch of freight. So this is just one example of some hoppers that he has on the layout. And one of the industries, it looks like, what does it say? Spruce pine. But yeah, so it is a double deck layout. This is right here is Henredon furniture. This is on the upper deck. You can see a lot of shrubbery. There is so much shrubbery on this layout that if you stand on one side of the room, the height of the trees block your view from seeing the tracks on the other side. So instead of kind of a traditional masonite backdrop barrier between sections, he did it all with trees. And he is really tall, so he made everything really tall for him. So people like me, you know, it blocked my view. This is an area that I ended up switching. As you can see, it's a factory that takes in some freight cars. This was the end of an industrial spur where this switching took place. And you can see it is a, a double level, bottom level, top level. Lynn says you could do this on your layout. I could, except my layout is city based. So yeah, I guess it's all about the execution of the track plan and track work. There is no logical reason why N-scale would not be great for operators. And I agree, and the more I operate on these gorgeous layouts, the more I learn that really is true. Here's one of those signature scenes again with the 2 bridges going over the creek. The reason there are 2 bridges on 2 different levels is he actually has a it's not really a helix, it's more of a nolix, but basically you're coming across on this lower track and then you go through this end section here, and you can see there's a lower track and then an upper track, and it kind of weaves itself back and forth around, so you end up changing levels as you get to this one corner of the layout. I do not have any paper mills on my layout. My layout's all based on the west side of Manhattan, primarily moving LCL traffic, less than carload traffic. So my layout's going to have a bunch of sort of background buildings and some, smaller buildings for deliveries, but it's kind of just, along the edge of the water. And yeah, there are every photo I think that I have probably has, some trees in it. And I have some shots of the entire room. Here's a little 44 tonner. If you were here last week, I talked a little bit about the brother or sister of this 44 tonner. This guy has sound and a keep alive and the whole 9 yards. And yes, he does use this for a small switch job on the layout. Here's a little bit of the, well, here, not a little bit, here is the actual track plan, as you can see here. So it started out basically just in the room that is kind of the bottom right of this image. Then it extended into that little smaller room in the back. That smaller room in the back is also his workshop area. And that is actually where I spent a lot of the op session, was switching Marion, which is back in that room there. And then on the left there, kind of with the Clinchfield map covering it, but on the left side there is his staging / yard area, and there are 2 people working in there. One side of the room is the, I can't remember if this goes east-west or north-south, but basically one side of the room is one end of the layout, and the other side of the room is the other end of the layout. So it is a point-to-point layout with the, with the switchback or whatever, the turnaround that I was talking about before is at the very bottom of this drawing, or this layout here. So you basically start and end in the same exact spot. Just because we keep tracking them around the layout, here's another Split Rock Mining Company car in N scale. On Damien's layout was number 61. On this layout is number 62. I have somewhere in my collection number 68 myself. I don't know where the other N scale ones in the middle went, but Thomas has some of his freight cars all over on various layouts in different areas. But again, you can see all the trees and all the scenery. Here's another image of one of those earlier images that I showed just a little bit further back. Yes, this is another Digitrax layout. It is Digitrax Simplex. He does have UR91s, but we did use the UT4Ds plugged in. So basically they're the little small utility throttles, and everywhere we went, we would just plug them in. There's plenty of, plenty of plug-in places all around. That is a good question, Chris. I don't, unfortunately, Split Rock, who is from the area, well, there's, Diana may know. I don't know. Diana, do you know if the Clinchfield's a real layout? Diana is the lovely wife of Thomas Split Rock. I believe the Clinchfield Railroad is a real railroad because multiple people do model it. I don't know if the Blue River subdivision is specifically the Blue River subdivision. There you go. Dennis says the Clinchfield is real. So I don't know that it's specifically split into the Blue River division and like other divisions, but it is a real railroad. Here's another little pedestrian bridge. He does have a bunch of scenes around the layout. One of the things that is really nice about this layout is the amount of space. There is a lot of open space on this layout, unlike my layout, but you actually travel distance on this layout, which is something that is more feasible on an N scale layout, especially when you have what I would say is, quote, a smaller basement. He still had a pretty sizable space dedicated to his layout, but, you know, it's not some 40 by 60, you know, layout space for some of them that we've seen. Dennis, this is N scale. This is all an N scale layout, the clinch field, the Blue River Division, Ken's layout in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yes, Dennis, you showed up late. Here's another view of that same pedestrian bridge. I took this picture, and unfortunately there's no way for me to really zoom in, but there's a guy standing next to that truck. I don't know if he really is peeing, but when I looked at the guy standing next to the truck, I thought he was peeing next to the side of the truck. I don't know. I could just be making that up, but yeah, I saw that and I took a picture of it. So earlier I was talking about how all the trees basically block your view. So this is me standing in one corner of the room, holding the phone up over my head and aiming it, you know, across the room. So my back is towards that workshop room. The opening in the door right there is where you kind of go around to get to the staging. The really, really tall guy at the end there, that is Ken. This is his layout. Yes, this photo is a little off angle and it's making me feel a little cockeyed, but you get a sense. You can see the car card boxes. You can see the fascia is pretty much open. He does have phones. You would use phones and you would call to the dispatcher who was sitting upstairs in the dining room. There was a dining room. But what these, you know, tree barriers did is it really, really made the space feel bigger, because you know, at my height, at 5'8", you couldn't see the other side. So it was, you know, as you were following your train around, it was, you know, you didn't know what you were coming. Diana, why haven't you gone to Ken's layout yet? Diana actually showed up at Dandosa's layout. It was one of the layouts I talked about last week, so I did get to see her while I was out there. But yeah, Ken's layout is impressive. I do want to point out, actually, we can go to the next photo to see this. That wall on the right, it's very crude. It's you know, it's very basic mountain scene. You can see on the other side of the room, he's actually got the wall painted with that very, you know, basic scene on the left side as well. And it really ties the room together. So even though this is just an aisle on the right side, he painted it, you know, in a way that kind of blended it in to the rest of the room. And again, like here, you know, from where you're looking here, you can't see the tracks on the other side. So it wasn't really, we had, I think there were 8 operators there that day, plus Ken obviously is the host. And there were a couple of moments where, because the throttles were plugged in, there were a couple of moments where you had to like say, hey, like, let's switch, and we would, you know, pull out our plugs and, you know, switch places. But outside of that, the aisles are actually pretty big. It was pretty easy to get around. So this here, this was his workshop. He did expand into this room, as seems to happen with everybody. This is the area that I started out switching. So there are industries along that very back wall. Again, you know, nice detail of just a very, very simple painted backdrop. It doesn't pull your eyes away and pull you out of the scene, but it, you know, it gives the idea you know, the space and the distance of the mountains. Something that I do want to point out as well that I guess wasn't as obvious when I was operating, but now that I see it here again, I realize how much it like made the room kind of feel open. But if you notice, this left side is not lined up with the cabinets underneath. So the left side actually goes from a yard on this side to a double track main line to the left. And instead of making the benchwork square, rectangular, it's a little more, you know, trapezoid shape. And I'm actually a huge fan of that. I think, okay, I'm going to knock some people's layouts, I know, but I think if you're building a layout, something to consider is that your benchwork doesn't all need to be square. And I think that there's a really good opportunity on a lot of layouts to, you know, angle your bench work and to, you know, have your bench work kind of, you know, shaped around the layout in a way that makes you feel like you're standing more inside of the layout. I look around my layout and most of my layout is rectangles. But, you know, the track work isn't square to the edge. And I've tried to, you know, make shapes out of it that are, you know, a little different, a little unusual. Somebody made a comment about this, this railroad being, you're going to Chris Adams' layout? Get me an invite, Dennis. I really want to go to Chris Adams' layout. Somebody was asking, oh, here you go. Chris Scott says, I noticed this is the dispatcher's desk. Thomas Splitrock might be able to say more. This maybe used to be the dispatcher's desk, but I believe, or I know, the dispatcher's desk is now upstairs in the dining room. So this is now just his work surface, his work area. I was a little confused at one point. They said, like, call the dispatcher, and I was looking at the phone on the bench, and I didn't see the phone hanging, but I knew the phone on the bench wasn't the correct one. And I did get confused for a little bit, but did figure out that the phone system to reach the dispatcher is there on the side of the desk, not on top of it. You can see, if you're not familiar with the UT4D, on the bench, just to the right of the phone that's on the bench, that's what the UT4D throttle looks like. It's basically just a, you know, simple little throttle. So, yep, having the dispatcher upstairs it can be a little bit dangerous, especially if the dispatcher is next to the fridge. At this layout, I actually had the dispatcher's phone number. Thomas Splitrock did dispatch. So yeah, Ron or Dennis or both of you. As long as I'm not already doing something, the 18th and 19th are already booked. I'm not sure when Chris is doing it, but yeah, I would take the train up to Chris's for the day and figure out how to make that work if he's running. So here is so on the left here you can see a little bit of a yard. Here's a closer picture of that yard. It's basically an interchange yard. You work the industries all along that spur, along that back wall, and then through the hole and along the back wall in the other area. And then you bring cars here, which then interchange with other parts of the layout. The phone is on its own network. Only one person can be on the phone at a time. It is not a party line system. So, yeah. Here's another neat little just, you know, bridge scene. Again, like just nice, simple scenes, not a lot of, you know, stuff. which was, again, just really nice. You know, just the way things expanded, and it was just nice. It was clean. It was well done. It was just, everything was just really, really interesting. Dennis, I did not know that about you. If you want to come down here and work on my layout, you're more than welcome to come do scenery. This next photo is one of those solutions that I think really only is possible in N scale. So I'm just going to go back a couple slides, right? So when you're in this room here, right, you got to figure out how to get from this room back into the room where he's got the yard. And if you looked at the, I know we're going the wrong way, I know. But if you look at this map here, you see kind of how there's only this little tiny area here between that the room on the very, very top and the room on the left. And if you look at the width of a door frame, you'll notice the width of a door frame is 4 inches. And if you're in HO scale, 4 inches is basically 1 track. But if you're in N scale, 4 inches, that's 2 tracks. So here is his little piece of scenery that goes through the door frame in that back room. And there are 2 tracks there. There's one that you can see and there's one that's hidden. And these tracks run and go back into the staging area. So it's, just a neat little solution to, solve the problem. And again, like the scenery, it's all, it's all really, really nice. So Randy, Prairie Rail. So the way I got to Minn-Rail and River Rail is that my area has a local area coordinator. Prairie Rail has decided that they don't want to add any more local coordinators. So unfortunately, there's nobody in my area to get me to Prairie Rail. We are trying, or we're discussing doing a non-Prairie Rail, trip to the Kansas City area. But Joey, you got to see the bottom. Where is it? It says no man ever. So yes, I want to get to Prairie Rail. I really, really, really want to see Joe Casper's. I am told that it is, incredible. Prairie Rail probably isn't in my near future. So we're gonna try and figure it out. But yeah, I mean, all these layouts, like if we can make it work, and there's an opportunity to do more layouts, and I've got the budget, I want to get out there and see as many of these layouts as I can. So here's what the phone system and their, the throttle holders and the plugins look like. I always sort of try and take a couple of pictures of things that are attached to the fascia. I like how kind of empty this fascia is. It definitely helps when you have a bigger layout and your industrial areas aren't all piled on top of each other, that you get to have stuff spread out. I don't know if this is Ken or Rich, but whichever you are you, oh, I'm not even showing it. Ken or Rich, are you up in Alaska, or are you down here? Yeah, I know. I have a screen in front of me so I can see exactly what you see, and I still screwed it up, but that's That's my stream for you. That's my stream. Here's more of an industrial area. This is what it looks like. He uses the pickup set out method of car cards that a lot of people use. On the left there, you see a physical characteristics map. These are very common on a lot of layouts. My understanding, and maybe I'm... oh, you did move full time. I knew you had both places. I didn't know you you moved permanently. Nice. Yes, this is the lumber area. You can see the little lumber shed there on the right side. Physical characteristics map. So instead of putting labels on the tracks, putting little signs on each tracks as to what each area is, and, you know, making sure that all the buildings are labeled and everything like that, instead, you have physical characteristics maps. It's my understanding that the way the railroad actually works is that the conductor has physical characteristics maps and that they don't actually, you know, label tracks. So it's a little bit like, you know, reading a map without street signs, but hopefully somebody in the chat will correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm usually wrong. Here's another great scene that just kind of shows space. Double track main line, little house way up at the top. Just, you know, the simple painted wall. What's nice about this though too is a lot of the, you know, mountain and tree areas are just completely filled with trees. Whereas this area's got some, you know, open blank spaces. So it's it's nice to have, you know, contrasting areas. This area's got a little more color to it as well, has some more, you know, lighter trees and stuff. So a very different sort of look than all of the other areas, but still, you know, as Joey's pointing out, it still feels cohesive and still fits in, you know, with everything else. And Chris, I agree. I would love to live in a house like that, kind of up in the middle of nowhere, as long as I could have a nice big train room. Here's a picture that I took. This is facing the other way from all of the pictures that I had taken previously of the main room. That is the back room back there, which is where I worked, where Marion is. And I took this picture primarily so you could see how that little section fits in against the wall, coming from the door frame of that back room into the staging of the room to the left side. This next photo, I guess, kind of proves that this was a real railroad. If I understand correctly, this is an actual timetable from the Clinchfield Railroad, and you know, handwritten, filled out. So just kind of a neat little, just again, like another nice detail that just sort of, you know, fits in the room. This was during the briefing. This room here, this is the staging / yard room. That's Ken facing us. Some of us paying more attention than others, some of us taking pictures, but he's basically, you know, talking through the layout. You can see on the right there a bunch of coal cars filled up, ready to go. You know, right side, left side, two different ends. That is a great question. My guess is that it is not counted in hours, but counted in years. Ken made this layout over several years. And yeah, most layout owners I have found are open to taking photos and videos. There are some that don't want you to post the stuff publicly. Most people are kind of okay with it. As long as you ask permission, I have found that people are, you know, pretty open to having stuff shared. You know, Ken's stuff is all over So, you know, he's very open, and all of the layout owners I asked before taking pictures, and they all, you know, gave permission. Ken pointing to the wall, not really sure what's going on. Now Ken pointing to the other side, you know, just happened. Discord record of train movements. That's what this is here. I'm guessing is what Thomas is saying. There you go. Pointing to the right, pointing to the left. Here we go. Here's one of the staging / yards. The way he does his staging is, or the way he does his yard / staging is, they start out mostly as staging yards, meaning he's got the trains set up ready to go. Depending on how many trains get run, you may or may not be building, building trains as you go. But, you know, he's got, I think it's 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 7 to 8 tracks on each side. This is the one side of the room. This is the other side of the room. This is the paperwork that he has, train, time, engines, caboose. So he already has the engines and the caboose set up for each of the various different trains. The top, I believe, was the morning, and the bottom is the second shift. I did that Marion shifter job, which is at the top of the second shift. But when we came on duty, the number 19 train, which is the second to last train from the first session, was still out on the layout. So I actually had to wait for them to move that number 19 train because it was blocking the track in Marion in order for me to start the work in Marion. But this is basically how he does his paperwork. He also has some supplementary paperwork where each of these trains, he makes up a clearance form. So when you call the dispatcher, if you want to, you can write down the orders that you receive from the dispatcher. So the dispatcher might say, you know, you have clearance from, you know, this place to this place. And theoretically, you're probably supposed to write it down. When I was out on the road, I didn't actually write it down. I just stuck this page in my pocket, but it was there if I needed it. Here's an example of the yard car card boxes, and just so this is Bostic. This is the yard on the right side, I believe it was. Maybe I don't know. One of the yards. This is one of the yards. Do all freight trains have timetables? Because I heard some people say that there's no timetable for freight trains. It depends on what year your layout is. And it depends on how prototypically the layout owner is modeling the area that they're modeling. Before there were radios, before there were telephones, before there was an easy way for train crews to communicate with each other, the only way to know whether a train was out on the road was through timetables and getting track warrants, you know, at the towers along the way. So if you're looking at your timetable and there could possibly be a train coming towards you, you are going to stay on that siding until you're sure that train isn't going to crash into you. They say that all of the rules in railroading were written in blood. Every rule was basically created because somebody, you know, got killed out, you know, working the railroad. So, yeah, you know, shot of whiskey. A lot of guys. Rule number 8: no alcohol in the layout. But that, you know, that rule wasn't always a rule. There was a lot of drinking out on the layout. But yeah, you know, New Hampshire had them. Different float operations had them. The Nickel Plate Railroad had them. There's somebody in my area that models the Nickel Plate in 1956, so they had them in 1956. Eventually, a lot of stuff did transfer over to CTC, Once, you had signals, then you didn't need timetables, although passenger trains still run on timetables. So unfortunately, there's no set rule, especially in model railroading operations. The layout owner may decide they want to have a more relaxed session, and you just run what they call Mother May I. Basically, you just kind of, look ahead and see if a train's coming and, work it out, who goes first. Or, maybe they want to have more of a strict session and they'll run on a timetable, and you better follow the rules. We showed this over on Damien's layout. This is another little track cleaning section. Again, you squeeze that little alligator on the fascia and it lifts up the bars. You stick a piece of cleaning material underneath it, and then you can run your trains over it and clean off the wheels. Timetable train orders. Every station had a book the train crew had to stop and sign, called the register. When you are coming up to a station or a tower, you would check in. You would have to read that register. You would see which trains have gone by. You would look at your timetable. You would see who is on time and who is not on time, and you may get different orders as well when you check the register. There is usually, or there was back in the day, somebody that lived at the station. They would live upstairs, and they'd have a telegraph, and they would get telegraphed messages to hand to the train crew as the train crew went by. So a lot of different ways you can model those things. Here's another yard picture. Don't really know why I took it. I guess just because of the Clinchfield locomotives. Caboose ground throws. One thing that's interesting about this area, no scenery, right? I mean, we don't, you don't have the trees and everything. You do have a backdrop. But you don't have all the trees and all of the very intricate scenery. This is the newest section of the layout. I don't know if Ken's ever run passenger trains. I don't think he has passenger trains, and I believe most of it is micro-engineering, if I'm remembering correctly. You can see, like in this photo, you can see that the frogs are metal. So definitely not Atlas track, but I think it was micro-engineering. Not 100% sure. Here's again, just another detail. Took some detail shots. I'm going to start moving a little quicker because how am I not going to get through two during this? Both North End and South End are in the same room. Make switching the coal trains from loads to empty easier. Yard crews just swap cars via an interchange switch. Yes. Again, nice little detail. Oh, I did take a close-up. See, tell me it doesn't look like that guy's peeing. Now that I look at it, it looks like it might be a woman. It might not even be a guy. I don't know. Let's just go to the next photo. This is the dispatcher's area. This is his dining table upstairs. You can see the clock. We didn't use a timetable, so we weren't following the clock exactly. But we did have a clock so that the dispatcher could fill out the paperwork. The dispatcher would mark when people got to different locations, and at the end of a session, you would have basically a timetable of actual trains that ran and where they went. This board that's up here is basically a line diagram of the layout. All of these little block things you see on it are all of the different train numbers, and the dispatcher can use these little magnet little things to move the trains across this magnetic board to keep track of where everything is. So in addition to the paperwork that he has here on the desk, he can also use the board. And of course, he's got the phone here to the left as well. And the food is just up in front. Here's a picture of some of the food. This is where the drinks were kept. Ken, before he retired, worked for Delta, and for whatever reason, this is where he keeps the drinks. So that's Ken Borowski's Clinchfield Blue River Division in N scale. And the next layout probably doesn't need any introduction whatsoever. So this was the end of Minn-Rail. So at noon, we basically, stopped running trains. People got kicked out, and some people went off to the airport. Some people started their drive. I knew that if I stayed and took the late train out Sunday night, that I'd probably be able to find somebody that would either host me for another op session or, at least, a layout tour. And the previous night we had a clinic at the hotel, and we still didn't have anything planned for Sunday, but I had found two other guys that could definitely stay. So we had at least 3 guys, and Thomas Splitrock agreed that he would join us on Sunday as well. So now we had 4 guys. It was just finding where we were going to go. And our first plan didn't work out, but Thomas basically just asked the guy running the clinic. He said, hey, I got 3 other guys from out of town. Can they come run your layout? And that's how we ended up on Dave Voss's Cumberland Northern Railroad. This railroad has quite a story. The railroad started being built in 1956. You might say, no way, that's not true. I will show you a picture that kind of proves that is true. He runs this layout every single Wednesday night, and he has a crew that shows up every single Wednesday night. This is one of, if not the best running layout in their area. And if you ask the layout owner why that is, he will tell you it's because he runs his layout every Wednesday night. This is the main yard. Yeah, there's a wait list to be on the crew. Thomas Splitrock is not a regular on that crew because Thomas sometimes has to work late on Wednesday. And there are so many people that want to operate on this layout every Wednesday that you have to commit, a week or more out that you're going to be there. And there are some coveted jobs on this layout. And this is the main yard. We'll see this picture again without everything in the middle of it. This is basically the map of the layout, right? So the door that you enter is down here near the bottom right. You enter in there. Peach Creek Yard is the yard that I ended up operating. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Tug Fork Yard is the yard that was in that first picture. Thomas Splitrock ended up running what's called the washroom. So if you look in the very bottom left, did I not say Tug Fork Yard? I don't know what I said. Yes, steam layout. Hopefully I took a picture of the coffee grinder that I ran. I don't remember if I did, but this little area down here on the bottom left corner, you can see it runs through a tunnel into another room. You are in another room from the rest of the layout, and you get your train sent through that little hole in the wall. Really neat, really neat setup. He had a bunch of these physical characteristic maps. Again, I ran Peach Creek Yard. I stood basically where it says Panther down here at the bottom. It was an interesting yard to run because it's, you know, your main and your sidings are on that curve. So you kind of got to keep track of things. And those switches up where it says Sproul, S-P-R-O-U-L, those are all, quote, remotely controlled. And I think I have a picture of the controls somewhere in here. But this is, everything would kind of come in through that, through the tracks at the top of this drawing and come around into the yard at the bottom. So here's a picture of the yard I ran. There you can see the coffee grinder. That brass locomotive, that was my switcher for the session. I ran that switcher back and forth, and I switched out all these coal cars with that steam locomotive. And that steam locomotive sounded exactly like a coffee grinder. If you don't know, back in the day, they, for whatever reason, made these things sound like coffee grinders. And it's just the way it is. So you would crank that thing up and you would think that parts were going to start falling off of it. It's just the way it is. Here's another view. Peach Creek Yard is there, you know, in the distance on the left. The remote switch controls that I was talking about earlier, they're on the left side there on top of the layout. You can see little metal, what looks like large staples. A lot of the switches were manually thrown, and there were a lot of like linkage setups. So you would throw the switches from the front of the layout, and he had all these linkages set up to go to the back. And these, you know, these weren't all in one place. They were in different areas. It was really impressive. It was really impressive. So here's coming in the door to the main layout room. Peach Creek Yard is there on the left. Cumberland Northern, big wood plaque he has on the wall there. You can see some of the car cards on the table in front. So that brass locomotive definitely didn't get painted because that's how I ran it. One thing to note that's interesting about this layout, yes, it was started in 1956. It's all built for operations, though. The scenery is very, very crude, but it gives a sense of the area. You know where you're at, you know where you're operating, you know where things are, you know how things work. This is one of the little areas that you had to basically duck under to get into. Here is a lot of the coal, or some of the coal, that would come out of Peach Creek Yard would go up here to get filled up, and then it would, you know, empty cars would go up here, full would come down. One thing I do want to point out at the bottom of this picture here, you can kind of see that lower track that goes up from the hole. That's actually coming out of Peach Creek Yard, and I believe he said it's a 5-degree incline. And what would happen is he would basically say, okay, take your locomotive with your train, run it as fast as you can up the hill. You won't make it, but get as far as you can. Maybe try it a second time. But when you stall out and can't get up the hill, you got to ask the guy running Peach Creek to use his switcher to push you up the hill the rest of the way. So it was kind of a funny little experience. The other thing, just remember this switch here for a second. We'll come back to the switch on that lower level. You were asking about whether it's steam. He did have some diesel on the layout. I'm not exactly sure what the breakdown of steam versus diesel, but there is a bit of both on the layout. I don't remember the exact year that the layout is supposed to be in. Here's Tug Fork Yard again. He's saying that's Borowski's layout. Are you behind? Are you behind in the stream? I'm showing Dave Voss's layout right now. I'm very confused. But you can see a steam locomotive down here on the bottom. There's a steam locomotive there to the right. Way far in the distance, though, there are some diesel locomotives. So this is the main yard. Dave Barraza is the guy closest to me. He's a local to my area. Dave Voss is the gentleman in the back there. They're discussing some of the buttons and knobs that control the switches in the yard, which are on the fascia. That there, making a funny face, is Thomas Splitrock. Facing us, he is the one that got us to Dave's layout. Dave was just fantastic, letting us, you know, come in. Again, like, not a lot of scenery, but just enough scenery to know where everything is. Here's just another little area. This is, you can get behind Tug Fork, kind of look, back across the layout. The area I ran is in the very top of this picture over there in the back. One example of how you kind of know this was made in 1956. I'm not sure why he's saving these pieces, but these were some of the pieces he had sitting up against the wall. But we'll see some more 1956 track work in a second. This is Tug Fork again from the back side. Here I took a picture of these diesels just because I thought they looked really cool. Here's a little, hole into nowhere, which happens around this layout. So these are some of the car cards. I've got some better pictures or different pictures of the car cards, but you can see different color cards are different types of cars. And what he does for the coal cars is to indicate what different types of coal you are transporting. Is he's got these little slips of colored paper, and the little slips of colored paper slide into these little plastic pockets on the right side. So depending on what color was in the pocket would depend on how you would sort the cars and where they were going. Unfortunately, I do not. I don't know the answer. Here, if you remember, here is the switch stand. And if you look to the right, you can see a little armature there. This switch stand was where the operator stood for the area that I switched. And this is, if you remember, I told you to remember that other switch that was halfway up that incline. So instead of walking down the aisle to where that other switch was, he put this little switch stand in with this little armature. So you could throw the switch from here, and this metal rod that you see runs all the way up. And here's how you throw that switch that's halfway up the hill. One of the guys, the story that he tells is that one of the guys that likes to run this area is of the larger girth, and the aisleway where this switch is right here is pretty tight. So by putting in this remote switch control, it leaves the aisle more open. So a question came in earlier that I intentionally ignored. Somebody asked me, is this a DC layout? So if I show you this picture, it'll probably answer your questions as to whether this is a DC layout or not. And seeing this, your answer is probably, yes, it's a DC layout. Well, it's not. he originally built and would operate this layout 100% DC. And you can see the switches there on the bottom, so you could select the color of the walk-around throttle that you had, and you can see in the yard, you know, the different colors and the different sections, so you can control the different sections. It was DC. I'm always impressed when I see this kind of stuff, because I can't imagine running a layout like this with DC, but that is how it was done. He had a bunch of these really old school physical characteristics maps, obviously hand-drawn, obviously not drawn on a computer. And these are what he still uses on the layout to this day to operate. Here's another one showing tug fork and kind of showing the entire, loop of the layout. On the top is showing east and west. And then on the bottom, you can kind of line up where the east is, the green, and then line up where that orange, the west is. And you can kind of see what the layout looks like unfolded. Here's another drawing. This is kind of the back corner of the layout. Tug fork would be in the bottom right corner here. This is up in the back corner. Here's just another picture of some of the details. Lots of cabooses. There's a coal filling tower for the steam locomotives. Used a lot of caboose ground throws. None of the switches were on switch machines. They were all hand throws, either finger flick or caboose ground throws. Dave is definitely old school. Randy, I got a picture coming up that will definitely highlight that. Here's another panel for when this was DC. I love that he did not take these panels out. It was really, really neat to see. Split Rock, thank you for reminding me as well. Split Rock said, look at that coupler. If you notice on this coupler, look at the Erie gondola. If you notice, it's not one of the new KDs. It doesn't have the, the typical wire with the hook. And you can see it on the front of that steam locomotive as well. These are old school style couplers. You basically use a little like dental pick hook, and you hook that little wire, and it is so easy to get these cars uncoupled. Very, very, very good coupling. So, how do you know it's a 1956 layout? Well, this is how he throws some of his switches. He did want to replace these at one point, but his crew said absolutely not. As you can see, it's just a popsicle stick on a pivot. And you either pull it towards you or push it away from you, and it's connected to the throw bar on the switch. And that's how you throw the switches. Very simple. As Thomas Splitrock said earlier, it's very easy to see here. This is brass track with fiber ties, and it's staked down. So this is, hand laid with stakes. So brass rail, and everyone says, brass rail, doesn't run well. He runs this every Wednesday night, and you would never know you were running on brass track. It just runs. Here's how they sort the car cards in the yard. Here's all the different yard tracks called out. I'm not exactly sure what the pockets are down here on the bottom. I'm guessing if you get a freight train or a road train that you get handed one of these pockets, and they would have your car cards in them. I took a picture of this diesel locomotive because it says Tug Fork and Tidewater on it, and I just thought it looked really cool. I'm guessing, I think he left already, but Chris Scott was asking what the red on the steam locomotives was. I'm going to guess that they were painted in Tug Fork and Tidewater, and that's why they had red tops. Here's just a little detail. This is one of the things that inspired me to do something on my layout. It's something I always meant to do, something that I never got to, but I finally started this project, which is my version of the of what he made. Obviously, mine's a little more modern, but it's an old New York Central passenger car that I'm turning into a yard office. It's going to live in the yard. This here was his version, and he picked this up and showed me. All of the details are on the backside. All of the details you don't even see. They're all on the backside, and he showed me another building as well, where all of the details are on the backside, which I just thought was funny. Here's the call board. You can see all the different names over there on the right side of the call board, the right bottom side of the call board. That's how you get your jobs. Had this display here with some, cars in it. This is another, I think this is the East End staging. You can see steam locomotives, diesel locomotives. And that's the end of the slideshow. I can't believe we actually made it. I thought we were going to get through that quickly. I'm a little surprised, but we'll talk about some of the other stuff later. I do have the new track plan down. We are going to start modifying some of the track. I've got this little area right here that I've started doing a little something with. I don't really know what's happening, but something's happening. I've got this car here as well that I've started weathering. That's going to be a little office for the south side of the layout. So lots of different projects happening, lots of stuff to do. Get out there, have fun. From the city that never sleeps. Farewell, model citizens.
It's all about humanity.